Welcome, friends and families, faculty and staff, members of the Board of Trustees, alumni, and parents and grandparents to these 134th commencement exercises of Northfield, Mount Hermon. Congratulations to you, the class of 2017, for your accomplishments, your commitment, your hard work, and what my colleagues and I recognize as a particularly fine spirit of fellowship that you have carried with you and demonstrate toward each other and your teachers. The spirit of our facilities crew, dining services, and staff has been as indefatigable as their energy in preparing all of this for us, and they deserve our recognition for getting us ready for the pomp and circumstance today. And while you're still their students for another hour or so, let's acknowledge all of our exceptional teachers who have brought you to this moment and sit before you today. And we, your teachers, need to also take a moment to acknowledge and thank the people who gave you to us for this brief period in your life and who have given much in providing this opportunity for you. So graduates, please join us in thanking your parents. Now, appreciation has been a consistent theme during the closing days leading up to this morning, whether in the words of your classmates at the lectern in various addresses and moments of silence, or in private moments between you and a teacher or a staff member, or in the foyer of Fort Cottage as you entered the Shad. I join my colleagues across the school in saying, you are very welcome. We're proud of you, and it has been a pleasure. You've heard me say often that the privilege of graduating from this school is something that you have earned, but it is also something that has been provided for you by people you don't even know, people who have given their time, their treasure, their talent, so that you can have this opportunity. Tens of thousands of alums have set the stage for you to walk across today, and you've followed in their footsteps, literally for those of you who have run the pie race in the case of our commencement speaker. And to belabor the track and field metaphor, you have cleared a bar that they have raised for you. Today, you have the privilege of sharing this ceremony with Frank Shorter, class of '65, and with the alumni trustees behind me who have given much of themselves to the school they share with you. Sitting next to our current chair of the Board of Trustees, Steve Fuller, class of 1958, is someone whose name all of you recognize because of his generosity, but only a handful of us know how instrumental he was a dozen years ago in helping shape the school we know and love today. Joining us today at commencement is Chair Emeritus of the Board of Trustees, Bill Rhodes, class of 1953. Before we begin, in earnest, please take a moment to silence your cell phones. And families should note that professional photographers are positioned to capture today's important moments. Thank you in advance for not obscuring fellow guests' views while you take photos during the ceremony. Now, our school gains its legal right to confer diplomas from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So I ask Mr. James C. Block of Chestertown, Maryland, especially appointed Sheriff of Franklin County, Massachusetts, for this occasion to bring us to order.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I call this assembly to order. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Thank you, Sheriff. Dr. Lee Ellen Strawn, our school chaplain, will offer the invocation.
Friends, we have been called to this auspicious ceremony today to celebrate the growth and achievement of our students, our children, our friends, whose names will each be pronounced in affection as they walk across this stage to receive their charge as graduates of Northfield Mount Hermon. Indeed, not only our graduating students, but we are all called by name, by our God, our source of abiding goodness, with the charge to build community with others through our shared humanity by engaging all of who we are. Graduates, as you hear your names called individually today, may you trust that you are surely worthy of the call to go forth from these hills to impact others with your intellect, compassion, and talents. Faculty and staff, as your students walk across this stage, rejoice in their names and encourage them in your hearts, for they will need your strength and wisdom in the days to come. Parents and family members, when you look at your children's names on the diplomas they will soon receive, be filled with pride and gratitude for the well-prepared and compassionate human beings that you are sending into the world. Friends and community members, hold all the names you will hear today in your memory, for remembering is a profound gift we give to one another that makes our moments eternal. As we hear each beloved name called today, let us know that all of us is called by name. In the call of our name, may we know the joy of this day and the depth of its meaning for our lives. Amen.
Thank you, Lee Ellen. Please join me in welcoming to the stage our senior orator, Abigail Renee Mahali. Abby Mahali is an impressive person. Impressive in person as she is on paper. Bright, thoughtful, diligent, friendly, and determined. She has made the most of everything NMH has to offer, excelling in every area of school life as a scholar, athlete, leader, social entrepreneur, and Votes Project anchor. A fine violinist, Abby has also anchored our symphony orchestra for 4 years, served as editor-in-chief of the Hermonite, and immersed herself in NMH's experiences abroad to both Brazil and Uruguay. Her passions run as deep as they are broad, and she has become a strong campus leader who has enriched our community with her many strengths and with her devotion to living, learning, growing, and striving for excellence. Abby will attend Dartmouth College next year. Abby.
It It is hard, looking out into these rows of parents, teachers, and friends, to remember that when I first stepped onto this campus, NMH did not feel like home. When we came to NMH 1, 2, 3, or even 4 years ago, we were overwhelmed by everything new. Those of you from cities were amazed by the tall trees and open fields as your parents parked their cars outside your new dorms, and of the vast starry sky as you lay looking out your window that first night in your new bed. Those of us from the countryside were intrigued by the stories told by our new roommate from New York City, and we were surprised by the many languages spoken as we sat in our dorm lounges that first evening. We were unaccustomed to feeling so alone as we waved goodbye to our parents and tried to get some sleep before our first day of school. We experienced a sort of culture shock in the beginning of our time at this school on a hill. We were all in awe of whatever was new to us, though perhaps we weren't yet able to put it into so many words. Soon, we adjusted. Within a week, I had made friends with the girl living across the hall. I got used to hearing languages I didn't recognize, and perhaps most important, though I would never go to like them, I got used to boat shoes. Now, today, this many years later, we share a complicated definition of home. Many of us live hours from our childhood houses, some of us plane rides from the countries on our passports, and though I myself live only a few hours north and am often reminded of my rural home by the scent of the cows on the campus farm when the wind blows a certain direction, this place truly feels worlds away. So I, like so many of us, have a split definition of home. The word home is often used casually, meaning nothing more than the place in which we live. But I don't call this place home because I address my Amazon packages to Lamplighter Way. I call this place home because the girls in my dorm and on my team feel more like family than friends. I call this place home because Bill from the kitchen knows my egg order before I even make it to the counter in the morning. I call this place home because as I sit around the dinner table sipping tea long after everyone has bussed their plates, there's nowhere I'd feel more comfortable. But home is about more than familiarity. We do not call a place home if we cannot feel vulnerable in it. As we grow up here, amid the pressure and stress and long sleepless nights, there are bound to be moments in which our walls come down. I am not someone who shares my emotions easily, and it wasn't until sophomore year that some of my closest friends saw me cry. But as my first year became my second, and my second blurred into a third and then a fourth, I felt increasingly as if this place was mine. And with this feeling of security comes an ability to be vulnerable. The sight of a 72 circled in the corner of my pre-calc midterm had me feeling pretty defenseless. And that day, yes, there were tears, and like many of us when we get a bad grade, I blamed the teacher. But once my frustration calmed, I found something else. That as soon as I was willing to reach out, I found support from my teacher, from math help, from my dorm faculty, and from my friends. This was a common refrain. I came across love and encouragement in almost every corner of this campus once I learned how to look for it. As the years passed, I became okay with showing not only my best self, but also my whole self. Perhaps the truest mark of my growth here was the first time I admitted to my best friend that I needed her help calling my coach and asking for the day off from practice. The third year became my fourth, and fall became spring. By the time I asked a girl to be my date to prom, I no longer felt scared of what people might think. At the time, each of our individual experiences seem a much bigger deal than they turn out to be. We only see as far as whatever big thing happened today, whatever made us laugh or cry or smile. But as the last weeks of our NMH career passed and the clock seemed to speed faster and faster towards the finish line, it became clear how small each of these moments are. One of my closest friends here cannot look at the stars at night. She says it makes her think too much. I, on the other hand, have spent many a night laying out on the grass looking up, and she's right, it does make you think a lot. As much of a cliche as it is, the cosmos makes you realize how small you are. I've been doing a lot of stargazing these last few weeks, and everything, all those times I grew up a little more on this campus, is starting to feel microscopic in the grand scheme of it all. Today is the last time that all of us, parents, teachers, dorm heads, coaches, and all 188 seniors will be sitting under the same roof. And I cannot deny that here, in these 4 years, this community has embraced me, and for that, I'm thankful. To my teachers for their extensive knowledge and infectious curiosity, to my dorm faculty for late-night musings in the lounge about everything under the sun, to my own freshman RLs 4 years ago and all those graduating classes before ours who continue to be among the people I strive to be like when I am grown, whenever that may be. And to all of my peers, for the millions of tiny moments that make this place and this experience what it has been. It is all of this that makes me most thankful my parents had enough confidence in me to ship me off to this little school on a hill 4 years ago. To borrow from my sister Elena's middle school graduation address, we are like goldfish being brought home from a fair in a plastic bag, allowed to grow only when we are moved to a larger container. When our parents drove us hours away from our childhood houses and allowed us to board buses and planes, they moved us into that first fishbowl. But as we enter the next phase of our lives, we are transferred yet again to another bowl. I'm conflicted in my feelings towards this transplantation. I've grown comfortable among the fields and bricks of this campus, but it is at this moment of comfort that it becomes necessary to move to a larger fishbowl. For all of us, our relationship with this place is complicated. Many of you are more than ready to move on, but there are some things we'll never let go of. The smell of the first days of spring as the snow finally melts for the last time. The sound of Craig Sanford's voice calling cookies down the hall as he makes his dorm rounds before midterms and finals. The taste of the dining hall's infamous chocolate chip muffins. Awkward Valentine's Day a cappella serenades. New calves on the farm. The chapel clock. Late night milkshakes. And if there's one thing I'll never be able to give up, it's a good view of the stars. No matter how necessary, it's going to be hard to leave home. Thank you.
The ritual of the spade symbolizes the importance of our work program, which from our beginnings as a school has involved every student in the practical support of the life of the community. Each year we call on the senior who delivered the spade oration at the opening convocation to pass the spade and its accompanying challenge for hard work to a member of the junior class. In turn, that student will deliver the spade oration at next fall's opening convocation. Subin Lee of the class of 2017 and Leilani Sanchez of the class of 2018 will conduct the ritual of the spade.
It's portable. So, good morning. It is truly an honor to pass down the spade today on the behalf of the class of 2017. As explained before, the spade, which is a shovel used to plant class trees or break ground for new buildings, traditionally symbolizes hard work and growth. It has a particular meaning to me, however, for those two words really capture the essence of my past 4 years at NMH. But before talking about that, I would like to go further back and talk about my life before NMH. Starting from the public schools of Seoul, South Korea, hard work has been a part of my life since the very beginning. Although intense, the whole thing was at least straightforward. I would stay at academies until 11 p.m., memorizing facts and solving questions, sure that it would lead me to ultimate happiness. And I would get into an elite middle school, which would then lead me to an elite high school, college, job, then marriage, kids, money, retirement, and ultimately golf. I had absolutely no doubt about such a lifestyle. I grew up in a society where everyone was like that and where everyone strived for that. So freshman year, when I came to NMH, I went absolutely nuts because I was so excited by the new freedom I suddenly enjoyed. But for the past 3 years, I was a hardworking student, just like before, and if not, more. There was, however, a profound difference. As I read Toni Morrison's Beloved and underlined quotes to share with the class the next day, I came to love literature because there was an entire new world in books that I could experience. As I went to writing help and sat there with English teachers, wrestling about one word for hours, I became fascinated by the intricacy of writing and its effectiveness as a means of communication. And as I went up to the board during number theory class, trying to prove why there are an infinite amount of prime numbers, I was dazzled by the sheer beauty of mathematics and logic. During my years here, I developed a genuine love for learning, and with that, hard work took on a different meaning in my life. I began to think about how the hard work affected me, why I put in the work, and ultimately, what it all meant for me. And I owe that change to this community. For someone like me, who is an only child and used to move around a lot, the interactions I had here and the support I received was truly extraordinary. NMH is, in fact, the first school I matriculated into and graduated from. I've met people here who have shared experiences and changed me in ways I would have never imagined. Every day was a serendipity and a learning moment here. And so for the faculty and staff members, underclassmen, and the class of 2017, I feel a very particular sense of attachment, and I've never wished more luck to any other group of people in my life. Just as the spade is used to break ground, NMH has given me a new starting point and a direction. The eagerness to learn, explore, and interact with people is something that I will carry on for the rest of my life. NMH has been an unforgettable experience, and I do not doubt it has been for you all as well. So with gratitude, I would now like to hand down the spade to the class of 2018's representative, Leilani Sanchez, who, along with numerous people here today, has made a huge difference in my life. Thank you.
On behalf of the class of 2018, I accept the spade.
Hey, Subin, you forgot your notes. Do you want me to keep it? Josephine Laura Weil, Ian Z. Vong Lam, and Yuna Kim will lead us in the class of 2017 hymn. Words are in your program. Please rise. I am honored to introduce our commencement speaker and to welcome back to campus Frank Shorter, Mount Hermon class of 1965. And I'm feeling more awkward than ever to wear this gold medal around my neck. Frank's accomplishments as an athlete, scholar, humanitarian, and advocate for justice and fairness are known across the world stage. But on this stage, he is one of NMH's beloved sons. Frank arrived on campus for the first time in the fall of 1962 and left for Yale after graduating cum laude in 1965. I looked through his academic files, and it won't surprise you to learn that he was as remarkable a student as he was a runner, and participated in more than running. At 130 soaking wet pounds, he had a short-lived football career as a freshman before he found his stride in running, and for the next few years, along with running, Frank led an outstanding Nordic ski team, but as he explained last night at dinner, climbed the rickety ski jump in Greenfield and decided not to be a ski jumper. He was a member of the baseball team, the sailing association, the glee club, the rifle club, and the shield club? Whatever that was. I want to acknowledge today that one of the people that Frank points to as being most influential in his life as a teacher is here with us today. And please join me in acknowledging Dick Kellum. Frank broke his first record in 1964 while running against Deerfield Academy, setting a new course record there, and in subsequent years set course records at every course at every one of our peer schools. Of all the subsequent acclaim he has earned as a college, Olympic, and professional athlete, and of all the records he set and shattered, one of his most cherished records was coming back to NMH to break the record in the Bemis Forsland Pie Race, the race Frank acknowledges as spurring his passion for running. To be clear, Frank's passions at Mount Hermon were not so dissimilar from yours at Northfield Mount Hermon. Not long after being the first American to win 2 gold medals in the Olympic marathon, Frank is quoted in the Runner magazine saying, quote, "My running proved to be a social advantage at Mount Hermon. To enable the interaction of the sexes, the Mount Hermon boys or the Northfield girls would be bussed over to the other's place for dances and movies. It was very closely monitored, and we all looked forward to animal time." That, he continues, was when the chaperones looked the other way for 5 minutes as the visiting group prepared to pile onto their buses. They figured you couldn't do much in 5 minutes. It was cruel. It was 5 miles to Northfield, and one time I arranged a rendezvous with a girl I'd been dating named Buffy, and late one night I ran over there. And we walked around campus for hours with me dressed in a disguise to avoid being noticed. I wore a long trench coat and a girl's hat. At about 3 o'clock in the morning, I ran the 5 miles back to Mount Hermon. That run was my cold shower. Frank is quick. Frank is quick to acknowledge his experiences on this campus as being responsible not just for his athletic and academic success, but also for the formation of his character. NMH's long-held mission to act with humanity and purpose led him to his leadership as the founder of the United States Anti-Doping Agency and to his work supporting victims of child abuse. Frank has many extraordinary qualities and is one of our most decorated and celebrated alums, but the quality of which we should be most proud rests in the quotation he chose to accompany his photograph in our 1965 yearbook, a quote from the 12th century French abbot Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, and it reads, "It's no great thing to be humble when you are brought low, but to be humble when you are praised is a great attainment." Frank Shorter, everybody.
Peter, would you come back up and say a few more things, please? Oh, wow. You know, it's surreal because I truly had forgotten my quotation for the yearbook, and that's what I think it shows. It's turned out to be pretty darn appropriate. So, Mr. Ferrari, thank you. And Charlie Tierney, Mr. Tierney, and Allison Goodwin, who's class of '83, and all the trustees. Thank you so much for inviting me here to talk finally. And I don't mean finally and I was, why didn't you do it sooner? It was more because the time was right, and I truly believe in that. I'm a believer, and I don't care how you express it, whether it's karma or it's God or it's Jesus, or I believe things happen for a reason, and there was a reason why I got here. And so the point of my talk here, I think, is I hope that you can look at me as someone who's not emblematic of a Northfield Mount Hermon student, but someone who's reflective of a Northfield Mount Hermon student. I learned over the years, I've also done commentary for television, Olympic telecast and everything. I had a great fellow I worked with named Charlie Dones, and he always taught me there was a rule of three, and I've always tried to stick to that. And so I'd like to start out by telling you what I'm going to tell you. And the first part of it is, because of what's going on in the spirit of this whole campus and community that I've felt since I arrived, and it fits in what I've always felt over the years, which was just totally reinforced when I got back here, just looking around. And last night when I was talking to Muhammad, who was, I think now you could say he was the most successful undergraduate distance runner. I mean, not undergraduate, but, Mount Hermon distance runner in history, that, that spirit is still here. And so it's another French expression, and it's plus ça change, plus il reste la même chose. The more it changes, the more it stays the same. And that's really what I've sensed. And it's in a good way. It's not a bad way. And the other point that I want to make, and then I'll go on to describe my history here, and what Mr. Fiorian said about how I went on from Mount Hermon to do what I did over the course of my life. And at this point, I think I want to just go back to the start, in the class oration, where, Abigail Mahaley talked about her experience here. I view it, she's the beginning of the circle. And I hope it can come across today, and what I'm talking to you all as graduates about is that I'm part of that circle, and I'm almost coming around to full circle. Because, over time, you're a great athlete, but at a certain point, and this was about 35 years ago, my goal became to simply not look as old as I was through my training and achievement. But so the point I'd like you to try to think about as I'm relating my experience here at Mount Hermon is, I won the Olympic gold medal in 1972, and I was standing up on the victory podium, and the first thought in my mind wasn't, oh, hey, now I hire an agent and I go on, and the rest of my life is a sinecure. And by the way, I'll be always grateful to Mount Hermon for, doing those College Board prep classes where I could learn all these words that every once in a while I could use later on in life. But that I started to think about what I was going to do. And while I was thinking about that on the victory stand in Munich, I think I was kind of reflecting back to my time here in how I would go on from here after my graduation. What was I going to do? It was the same kind of feeling. Again, more it changes, the more it's the same. And in the course of my career going on, I like to think I had a different kind of career. I chose not to do the normal sort of socially expected things. And, graduate, and it was the person who gave the spade, and I have to give him credit here, Subin Lee. When Subin came up and he said, I found so much more about how I could go on from here, out of that groove into which he had been placed as a child in Korea. What I'd like you to really remember is that after Munich and what I went on to do, I learned over the course of the next 45 years, is that what I was doing, and sometimes you don't realize this except in retrospect, I decided that that was not going to be the most significant achievement in my life, at least as far as I was concerned. And I knew other people might view it as that way. So what I'm telling you is, don't view any significant success in your life as the ultimate success in your life at any one point in time. Always to be willing to go on from that. And the third point is, don't be afraid to follow your intuition and passion, and that takes many forms: sports, academics, art. And as I said, don't feel locked in to the social expectations that are coming along, because I was going to graduate from here. And like I said, I used running to get into Yale and to help. As you know, you don't have folders anymore, but we would do things, and we would try to avoid something we called club grubbing, which was, I don't know if you realize the term, have so many activities that it sort of enhanced your admissions application. I knew that it would help me. I had success here, but you don't want to. I chose not to go to college. I was a pre-med, graduate, go to medical school, and become a pediatrician and deliver babies in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains in New Mexico. And I chose not to do that. And so I'll just relate here a little bit of my experience at Mount Hermon from the time I arrived, because I think it fits in with the first thing that I said. Things are truly the same. I'm not one of those people who looks for change. I look for what's similar. That's just the way I am. So when I arrived, my sophomore year, I was in the top floor of what we called the Forsland House, Axel Forsland, and there were 4 of us there. So in a way, it kind of eased my transition onto the campus, because we were on the periphery and kind of could get away from things. But I got here, and this is where I believe things happen. I came from a very, very abusive background. And the only thing I'll mention here is that family of 10, 6 sisters, 3 brothers, and my sisters suffered all of the above. And we had it pretty bad too. And so I began to run at age 10 to and from school in my hometown of Middletown, New York. And I was like 9, 10 years old. And if you look at me in the Olympic telecast, I carry my right arm up against my chest, and my left arm, and my right arm moves like this, because this is how I carried my books to and from school, because I didn't have, it's true, didn't have backpacks at that point in time. Yes, I'm that old. And so I learned to love it. But I realized something that I'm going to bring around and talk about with Mr. Kellum. I'm 10 years old. There's a dress code in my school. Black tie shoes. I convinced the principal to let me wear sneakers because I was training. In gym class, I convinced the gym teacher to allow me to run laps around the school because I was training. I mean, how did I do that? I'm 10 years old. My feeling is they thought I'd get over it. And so what I want to say is, when I got to Mount Hermon, I wasn't a runner. I just ran for stress relief and to get away and escape from my home. So it took me a year here before I really decided to run. As was mentioned, I went out for freshman football. I was pretty good until they got a hand on me. I was a halfback. And in baseball, I batted cleanup, and that was good. And it's how it happens here in this social context. One of my roommates, the pie race was coming up, and we had a bet. And he bet he could beat me in the pie race. And I'd done the running. I hadn't trained. I entered the pie race. And in that race, we had the New England Championship cross-country team from that year. They'd won the New England Championship. And they finished ahead of me, those 5. And the other guy was a guy named Dave Reichert, who is truly a legend. And he was the 4-year in a row junior national Nordic combined champion. Is that right, Dick? It's close. And he was a tremendous cross-country skier, but he did downhill slalom and jumping. And I finished 7th. And so I thought, oh, okay, that's it. I'll go out and for cross-country. Long story short, worked my way up the next year to second on the team. But the most important part of getting on that team was that it was the first time I began to realize here that there were mentors for me. And my first mentor really was the captain of our cross-country team. And so he was George Bowman, New England champion, and I decided that I would emulate him. And this was someone who I thought could truly help me. It was just my instinct. To proceed on, then I began to look for mentors amongst the faculty. And there were 3. And one, and you never know where they're going to be. One was my sophomore English teacher. His name was Mr. Donnelly, and he was an ex-football player, lineman for what were then the New York Titans, which became the New York Jets. And what he did with me at one time, in the spring of my sophomore year, he just kind of started talking to me and said, you know, you really kind of goof off. And there's so much there, and you could do so much better. And for me, given my background, here was this huge man looking at me and telling me really gentle, soft things and instilling in me a confidence. The second man was Jervis Burdick, who was in administration. And I don't know why he liked me. Because again, I think you're getting the feeling I was not one of the most well-behaved people here, this student body. But he gave me a job in the administration, and there's a story behind that too. My job was to take attendance at chapel, part of it. So I would take attendance at chapel during my senior year, put it in the box, and go down to the gym and change and go for a run during chapel. He probably knew. But it was just, again, it was in a way the acceptance of adults who were molding me in my education to realize that they were truly reinforcing my own decisions, even though they were somehow in a way not along the normal path. But then the most important part of my running here, and sure, I won a whole bunch of cross-country races here, and I won't go into it, but I did pretty well. And, you know, and as was mentioned, I did well academically because another one of the threads that runs through here for me, even over the past 50 years, is that love of learning and learning for learning's sake, you know, is still here. You know, it's absolutely still here. And you know, to have the 2 programs here, and I know they're always acronyms, but you know, the College Model Academic Program, and here I'm looking for the other. Oh, the Group of 12, is that it? Yeah. You know, it's no matter how you put it, what was going on here, and is now available and has been available to all of you students. I'm trying to point out that the faculty at that time was essentially doing the same thing. They were, but it was not articulated, and it wasn't structured. But those threads were still here, and it's most well represented by Dick Kellum, because I had a dilemma. And again, you know, all of you are going to college. This is my own personal applying to college story. I actually had a choice well, I applied to 3 colleges. I applied to Yale, I applied to Williams, and I just realized when I was here, I probably applied to this 3rd school because of my first bursary job my sophomore year. I fed the Hobart dishwasher, so I applied to Hobart. And it must have been subliminal. And so I was going to, the choice was, and this is the way it was, because Dave Reichert, I talked about mentors, Dave Reichert was a couple years older, and he would come out, and that's where I got the idea to sort of train on the sly. He came out and made a cross-country track here in the snow and trained on his own, outside, right, Dick? Outside training, and I noticed that. And so that's how I kind of got into that. So my basis for choosing universities was the Yale, and because I remember I mentioned my mentor, George Bowman, he always wanted to go to Yale. And his father was a law school professor, and he talked it up, and he told me that the Yale coach, 1964, before I graduated, was the Olympic track coach. So my thought was, well, I'll just try to go someplace where you can do both, right? You have a good coach and can run. And I was going to go to Williams. I applied to Williams, and if I were accepted, I would go to Williams and ski. And that was really the choice. And so it was going to dictate where I went. Well, obviously I went to Yale and went that way because, as was mentioned, nothing like standing at the top of a 50-meter ski jump and watching the thing go back and forth underneath the skis of the guy going down in front and looking behind and seeing you can't get down any other way than go down. I realized I was chicken. And so, I had decided that I would focus on the running. But I was captain of the ski team. And I was captain of the cross-country team. Okay? And the season had started. And I went to Dick Kellum's office. And you can imagine, I had to wear a sweatsuit. And we sat down and talked, and I told him what it was I wanted to do. And if you remember, here it was, I was back in middle school doing the same thing with my principal. That's just kind of the way I am. And I said, okay, let's see. And this is another thread. I went and I told Mr. Kellum, and again, I still can't help but call Mr. Kellum, that this is what I wanted to do. And he looked at me and he said, fine, it's good. It sounds like this is what you really want to do. And I don't think there are many places around where that kind of thing can happen. So once again, Dick, please stand up because that had a tremendous impact on me. Now, to get back to choosing your path, where you want to go from here in university, what I learned here, which I now know you learned here, I learned a certain work ethic because, as you can see, the work program really meant a lot to me. Because to me, even at that time, it reflected the inclusion aspect of this. Everyone had a job. One of the roommates I had for a few weeks, and that ended because he was going up to the infirmary and he had a cough every 2 days because he needed the codeine from the cough syrup. That ended. And God, where am I here? But it was part of my. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. So again, I just changed roommates, and again, serendipity was one of the words that was used here. My roommate for 2 years was a fellow named Eugene Harris, who was from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and I think in that class one of 2 black students. And so he became my roommate for 2 years. And to me, again, it's always reflected the inclusion and diversity and again, I was always attracted to that. And just as an aside, my sister, one of my sisters at Northfield, actually, there was another black student in my senior class, and she dated him. So we had 2 people from one family. So I guess there was something in the atmosphere here, and my family, and where we came from. But, that environment also, and this is the really last point I want to make. There are others if you want to stick around and ask me later. Is that here is where I learned And the term might be overused, but it was compartmentalize. And I view it as turning on a switch and turning off a switch. And here at Northfield Mount Hermon, it's where I learned that I could turn on the academic switch, and then for me, the training and the running was a reward, and then I could turn off that switch and then turn on the athletic switch. And it is also through two people I want to mention, Warren Hall and Sam Green, who were the coaches here. Warren Hall, in particular, had an immense influence on me because he would actually, as happens now, he would run with us and train with us, and one of our goals in running was to finally beat him in practice. And so what I learned from them was incremental goal setting, which I hope relates back here to your graduation. And it was, again, it was alluded to before with the fish analogy, which is wonderful, because I had the same kind of attitude. I realized how big this pond was. I did, right from the start. And my goal became to do very well as I could in this pond. But the other critical part of it, I think you can see I'm sort of a risk taker in some ways, I was willing to simply find out. I decided, yes, if I were going to do the academics, I would really commit to it and find out. And it didn't, in a way, matter how much success or recognition I had. It was simply to find out how well I could do. And in the athletics, it was the same way. And I had a mentor, George Bowman, who was the best runner in New England. But for me, it wasn't to try to ever beat him or even to win the New England championships. It was to say, okay, I've turned off the academic switch. The athletic switch is on. Okay, let's just find out how well I can do. And that spirit started here. And so to conclude, I'll bring it back around to the Olympics. When I was on the starting line of the Olympic marathon, it wasn't, oh my gosh, you know, what's going to happen? Am I ready? How well am I going to do? Uh-oh, what if I don't do well? And that was combined by the fact that there had been the Israeli massacre of the Israeli athletes. And so I also, coming back to here, in my ability to compartmentalize, I made a decision right after the memorial service for the Israeli athletes because I knew that the marathon course was the only place where the terrorists could do anything else. I decided I would not think about it because they would win. And I ran the entire Olympic race. I never once thought about what might happen. And in the same way, when I got on the line, I wasn't, okay, what if? No what ifs. And that's another thing. I lived my life on, no, I don't know what ifs. What if I did? What if I had done this? I never wanted to know that. Never wanted to, not face it, but it just, I didn't want to know it. So the gun went off in the Olympic race, and I just said to myself, okay, let's see, let's find out. And so what I encourage all of you to do, whatever your circumstance is and how you find yourself weaving your way through college and beyond, that at these certain points where you might have the if-onlys or what-ifs, just simply say to yourself, no, let's find out. And who knows, sometimes things like happen to me can happen to you. So congratulations, everyone. Thank you. And if anyone wants to get beside me and talk to me after, I'm here. Thank you.
Frank, thank you. And he's serious about that, so take him up on it. As from the moment he arrived on campus yesterday, it has been a narrative, and we're so happy to be part of it. Will the candidates for the diploma please rise and present themselves at this time? All of you. There you go. Stay standing. I'm sorry, I confused you yesterday here. This is that officious part I talked to you about, by the authority of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and in recognition of your successful completion of the requirements set by the faculty, I award you this diploma and admit you to the distinguished company of the alumni and alumni of Northfield Mount Hermon. You may be seated. And now, will the first row of candidates please come forward as their names are read by their class advisors, Diane Arena and Kai Robinson.
Zavar Abdi. Eniola Ajao. Allison Allen. Emeka Anama. Sophia Asab. Benjamin Lawrence Atwood. Igor Badich. Mauricio Bayetes. Simon Basescu. Sophie Basescu. John Beeson. Lillian Beltate. Thomas Burley Carmen. Martha Bishop. Louis Blanc. Keyshawn Tyreek Bostic. Julius Burton. Anna Talise Butts. Hannah Callaghan. Alvaro Calleja Palacios.
Okay, slow down. Slow down.
Kevin Kapp. Avery Jane Carlisle. Asher Carlson. Chloe Juniper Castro Santos. Mahan Chenrai. Eve Charest. Connor Charlton Edwards. Calvin Chang. James Chow. Helene Shifchi. Daniel Clark. Malcolm Cochran. Paul Cohen. Nicole Cook. Ross Kellum Damon. Diana Bowen D. Isabella Rose Maloney DeHurt. Margaret Holman Dent. Jerome DeRosier. Matthew DeWolf.
Grace Donahue. Matthew Donahue. Natalia DeRogi. Milo Hick Douglas. Grace Emily Dublin. Shannon Marie Duffy. Maggie Dunbar. Ama Nole Edozian. Olivia Eggers. Valentin Igozarian. Ransley Onwell Familia. Allison Sarah First. Claire Fishman. Emmett John Flynn. Vicky Fong. Hutton Fritzl. Abigail Galati. Taylor Goodwin. Kellen Grady.
Ayana Anissa Graham Siffinom. Riley Gallus Hager Stone. Haley Harms. Autumn Hauser. Christopher Heist. Gordon Ho. Hannah Holzer. Ilya Davy Hora. Muriel Horvath. Trung Nguyen. Samuel Inoyo. Lila Jacobs. Nursultan Mora Delu Janabek. Delaney Smith Kavanaugh. Kichi Hang Kevin. Martha McCleary Kenyon. William Michael Kersey IV. Cheho Gum. Vladislav Harush.
Junmo Kim. William Minsuk Kim. Yuna Kim. Julian Kinney. Henry Knox. Ashlyn Coe. U.Y. Wade Quo. Ian Lam Z. Fong. Hannah June Langer. Isabel Laubach. Lai Tai Phuong T. Anna Sujin Leckie. Stephanie Somin Lee. Subin Lee. Wenhao Lee. Alexa Gray Licata. Patrick Larley. Marcus Lin.
Lily Shoshin Lin. Emma Lindale. Tora Liu. Chuen Loy. Jen Loy. Isabel Francis Magby. Patterson James Malcolm. Andy Manos. Sophie Margola. Julia McClellan. Robert McKeon. Abigail Renee Mahaly. Emily McKinnon Miller. Lachlan Miller. Wahab Minhas. Layla Tehran Marazi. Yep.
Rhoda Ahmed Mohammed Didia Jama Guliad Adan Yusuf Abdukor Abdi Ali. Fumitatsu Adam Mori. Ryan Mulhern. Thomas Murphy. Reed Nani. Athieno Ngowe. Fat Min Win. Eli Nicholson. Henry Ning. Celia Olashansky. Matthew Olson. Angela Onyate Gomez. Giovanni Ortiz. Pete Pasha. Kristen Powell. Indigo Pellegrini de Par. Natanun Pontiptogun. Andrew Playtech. Tancredi Polini. Eve Pumazi. Alexis Portnoy. Dominic Polson.
Dorian Poussaint. Nevada Irene Powers. Crystal Amethyst Ramirez. Jake Rash. Talia Hope Raziel. Gunther Hild Reed. Henry Reeder. Dulce Alexandra McGavern Reinhardt. William Alexander Rhodes. Anthony Roby. Eric Roman. Jordan Roulette. Wayne Sampson. Salandra Antonique Samuels. Jordan Seacan. Janara Shadabakova. Chloe Shaw. Rintaro Shinohara. Leah Alexandra Shukan. Jara Siegel.
Prambum Sintoshat. Ewan Slater. Aria Small. Lydia Allison Smith. Nick So. Sue Schwen Felicity. Jackson Spindle. Eleanor Spizuko. Katie Elizabeth Sprankle. Shane Sue. Sophia Sue. Kaiji Takaoka. Chansu Takayama. Alice Soon Takayama. James Thayer. Eleanor Todd Long. Diego Torres. Zung Lum Tri Tron. Chongyan Tu. Natalia Tu.
Theodora Faye Webb. Trowbridge Jensen Weed. Josephine Weil. Huen Min Victoria Wu. Han Yu Melody Wu. Lin Feng Jason Wu. Shoyo Yanagihara. Jessica Yoon Shin Gray. Eugene Yen. Emerson Catherine Younger. Nettie Zachary. Michael Zanini. Jimmy Zhao. Taylor Ian Zuberer.
Congratulations and welcome to the Alumni Association. So, you guys have the best class song ever. Now, You have the best class song, and we all know that we have the best school song. And so I now ask 2017 graduates, Eleanor Todd Long, Lachlan Miller, and Martha Kenyon to come to the stage to lead us in singing Jerusalem. The words are in your program. Please stand. Dr. Strawn will now offer the benediction.
Northfield Mount Hermon class of 2017. Hear these words of blessings as you take leave of your beloved campus. But let me start with the words of your own classmate, Indigo Pellegrini de Par, shared in her powerful moment of silence message given on MLK Day. Build understanding rather than blind agreement. Don't agree because everyone else does. Rationalize and empathize. Ask questions. Remember to bring your NMH values into important conversations. More than just words, you have the power of education. Friends, may you be blessed with the power of education. May you be blessed with the courage to transform your ideals into the daily steps you walk each day. And may you be blessed with the imagination to envision a future where your life feels complete because of your kindness and understanding. May you be blessed with a steadiness that gives you the balance to hold both the joys and sorrows in life, and may you be blessed to know the strength of the universe that is always beneath you. May you be blessed by the humanity of your neighbor and by your desire to live out yours. And may you always be propelled by hope. Wherever you unpack your bag and with whomever you share your meal, may you be blessed to be a lamplighter all the days of your life. With this prayer of blessing, you will never be alone as you find your place in the world. We are proud of you. Go forth in peace and with great expectations. Amen.
Thank you, Dr. Strawn. As we all remain seated, Director of Choral Music Sheila Heffernan will lead us all in the singing of the Northfield benediction, and the words are in your program.
The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee, and be gracious unto thee, and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee, and give thee peace, and give thee peace.
So on behalf of all my colleagues at Northfield Mount Hermon, I thank all of our guests for sharing this marvelous occasion with us. Lunch for graduates, guests, faculty, and staff is available at specific locations following this ceremony. Please see the back of your program for instructions where to go. Please remain seated during the recessional of the stage party, then the faculty, and then the graduates of the Northfield Mount Hermon class of 2017. Safe travels home, everyone. And now we close as we began, and I call upon our sheriff.
Is now closed. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.